Today you find me in a space station. This is just where I happen to be parked up with my freighter. And I'm going to do a couple of tests on shipbuilding. Just the most basic tests, just to kind of get an idea of what changes when we have a couple of parts. Now I've got two of these parts, as you can see, two needle noses. I've got two S-class reactors. I've got two vector wings, and I've got two mono thrusters. Now, when I was testing earlier, I was using red, so I'm going to stick with. Oh, sorry, I was using metallic red. I'm going to stick with metallic red with a chrome, just because I like the look. It's a nice looking ship. And I've chosen parts I like. I'm not really into shipbuilding. It's not really something I ever wanted or am particularly interested in, for that matter. But it's cool. It's there. I don't mind the way they've implemented it. It's okay. It allows you to still find ships that you can't build, which I'm really into. You can't build my favourite ship, for instance. But one thing that I am interested in is exactly how the reactor core works and whether or not that has any sway over the stats. Now I realised that maybe the parts do, and it realised that maybe going from station to station does. But this test is specifically to see if the reactor core does anything. So I'm going to make two ships in a row, and then I'm going to compare them with the save editor. And here are the stats. And also I'm going to look at the technology. And one of the things we can do in the save editor is we can enable all slots. So we can see where the supercharged slots are. If it was in the fourth row, which it can be, then we'd have to find it. But at the moment we can see there's four of them and they're easily displayable. They're not too far apart. That's not too bad if you want a distributed system. Probably isn't that bad if you wanted things all the same. It's not great, but it'll do. So these stats are, I mean, they're not even really middling. The damage potential is low for a fighter. A fighter is anywhere between 70 and 80, with the middle being 80. So we're not even in the middle range for damage. The shields are between 24 and 38, with an average of 31. So this is just under average. It's not too bad. Hyperdrive, you never get hyperdrive on a fighter. And maneuverability, 41. Again, that's it's okay. It's just over middling. The range would be between 35 and 45. So there's nothing exceptional about these stats, but obviously they are in the S range. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build the same thing again. They're all a different iteration of the individual part, if there is a different iteration. So for instance, when you're using a module, and you go up to the module vendor and buy, say, a hyperdrive module, each time you use one, a counter counts up and then the result changes. So if you reload, you get the same results each time, and if you were to do three of them, you'd get the same results for all three of them, because it's all about that counter going up one each time you use them. So I want to find out maybe if the reactor core is doing that. Okay, so I now have an autosave that is with the new stats, and they look very familiar. Obviously, if we go to the technology again and we enable all slots, they're in exactly the same place, and the various stats look very similar. 70.39, that is identical. That's identical. So that it doesn't look like it's ticking over with the core. And just to double check, yes, I've used up both cores now. So clearly it isn't the core that is changing a bit like a module. So that's the first test completed. And I will probably add a few extra tests to this video, but for now I'll reset everything and I'll be back soon. Okay, so the only difference this time is I have exactly the same parts ready, but I'm in a different system. I'm going to build exactly the same ship in this different system. And then maybe I'll build exactly the same ship in another system. Just for a double test. So that's the same there. That's the same there. That's the same there. Assemble that. And already we've got a different layout. And we seem to have different stats. So here we are with the new ship. Now I've got the stat comparisons here as well. Let's just set that as enable all slots. Aha, so they're all tucked off on the right hand side. So we have spaced out. I mean, that's not a great layout, but it might be nice for some things, but I wouldn't say that would be great for a fighter. But the important thing is the stats. We have very low stats, very much towards the bottom of the range, which is between 70 and 80 for damage. Shields 24.59, so that's really quite low. And the maneuverability is below middle. So again, the stats aren't great, but they are at least different. So we do get different stats and a different layout in a different system. So what I've done now is I've just come to another 3-star economy in the same approximate region of space in Calypso. And I'm building exactly the same again. And I've got exactly the same colour now. So this ship looks a little bit different. First of all, let's get those slots enabled. Got one here, one here, one here. So we haven't got all of them, so just let's expand that a second. So we have one here, one here, one here, and one here. So this is a much more widely distributed set of supercharged slots. So I'd say that's probably a little bit worse, really. We've got two that are not too far away from each other here. But the stats are looking a bit better for at least damage. Let's just pull up. Damage 81.1, so that's just above average. The shields just below average. Hyperdrive obviously is always 0. And maneuverability around about average. So this is a much more average ship as opposed to not particularly great ship. And so the stats are a bit better. And so it would suggest that what we need to do is go to lots of different space stations to find better stats. Still haven't found any exceptional stats, but that seems to be the difference. So the next stage would be to build 2 different fighters in the same system and see if the parts make any difference. So I'll try that with, say, just a different cockpit and see where we go from there. Okay, so now I am back in the original system where we built the first fighter. This time what I've done is I bought 3 different parts, completely different to the wings, the thruster and the needle. I've got a speeder fuselage instead of a needle fuselage. I've got vector thruster instead of a monothruster, and we've got halo wings instead of the vector wings. And what I'll probably do is just change one thing at a time and see what happens. So let's just start off with a fuselage change. Same class, same wings, and same thruster. And just for the hell of it, we'll do same colour as well. So we want the light grey, red, red. Doesn't really have an awful lot of chrome. It's just odd that on the actual cockpit itself. I think if I just change that, yeah, that's where it's changing. So not as impressive when we go onto this ship. And assemble it. Well, certainly those slots have changed. A different setup. Certainly different to the original ship we first had. And the stats also look a little bit different. So 82.88 above average for a fighter. 28.66, that's below average shields. And maneuverability 43.94, That's above average agility. So we've got an above average ship. Not a great layout for the supercharged slots, but certainly different. And all we've done is we've changed the fuselage. So now let's maybe build exactly the same ship, but instead of swapping the fuselage, we'll swap the thrusters. So now I've built the same ship with just the thruster different instead of the nose. So immediately we can see the supercharged slots are in a different place. And we have 3 in a row here, so it's quite a nice supercharged slot combination. 3 in a row is a lot better than any of the ones we've seen so far. And the stats are, well, immediately I'm not inspired by them. The damage is very, very low. It's way below mid, it's towards the bottom, between 70 and 90 being the range. Shields below average, and maneuverability just above average. So, I mean, a fighter is all about shooting, and that's terrible stats. But it could probably make up for it with those supercharged slots, so not a bad ship. Just by changing the thrusters. This time the only difference are the wings. So we have the same thrusters as originally, the same nose as originally and cockpit, but we have different wings. So again, we have slightly better damage this time. We have just below average damage. We have above average shields for a change. That's getting up there to pretty good shields. And just above average maneuverability. So we get a better ship. And the supercharged slots are in 3 together again and 1 off to the side. So again, that's going to be functionally pretty much the same. Potentially you could put something here and get 2 different adjacencies. But it's going to be very similar functionally as the straight one. So it pretty much conclusively shows that if you just change an individual part, then you change the stats and you change the layout. Now, the other thing that people have been mentioning online is that the decals may change. So here we have the decal on this nose, which was with the halo wings as a blue and green. So I'm going to see what happens if I just change a part in the same system and see if the decal changes. So here we don't actually really need to make the ship. We can see the decal. It's just here, and it's the same even when we change the nose. So the only thing I've changed from the ship that we had just a minute ago is I've still got the halo wings, I've still got the thruster, but the nose is different, and we've still got that little round decal. We have another decal there. I'm not sure if that was anywhere on the previous ship, and another one there, and another mark there. So there may be some slight differences. Let's go back to... Yes, I'm not seeing anything obvious. There's a... Can't quite see what... Is that a 99 there? Yeah, that's a 99 decal on that nose. Apart from that, I can't see the other decals. And that's not a 99, it's just a 9. Let's added those 2. So I've only got the 2 noses, but let's put that one back and then just change the wings. And it doesn't change that, but it looks like the colour's slightly different. It's probably because I'm in a different... Oh, let's change that back to that. Let's change that back to that. Let's put that wing back again. Maybe I'm just imagining that one. So it's got a green surround there. And it's got a pinkish purple surround there. So it's subtly changed the colour scheme of that decal. Still a 99 there now. Now we can see that. Let's put that... Yeah, we can see that, but it's a different colour. So it's changed the colour of the decal just by changing the wing. So what happens if we change the thruster? So that's green and red again, which I believe was... And that's purple and red. Let's do the complete swap. And that's, I can't quite see what that is, but it looks subtly different. So the colours of the decals subtly change. And there seem to be other decals on some of the noses. And the 99 changed to a 9 and some with the different fuselage. So there are some small variations here. I haven't got many noses or wings to really play with to really see the full combination of decals in this station. But what I'm going to do next is go to another station. So we know in a different system we'll get different stats. That one isn't up for question anymore. And we know different parts will give us different stats. But will we see different decals? Well, no, we seem to be seeing the same decal. That's the same round decal with the same colour configuration and the same 99. Now, this could be region based, so I might be in the same region. I'll check that in a minute. Yeah, I think we're seeing similar combinations. But it's the same decal. The only things that's really changing is the colour. And the 9's the same. That mark on the back looks the same. This mark here looks the same, and so does that one. I think we're seeing the same decal combination. So let's just check to see if we're actually in the same region. So we're in the region Skepa. I don't think this is the same region as the previous station. Let's go back. No, this is in the region Nakushu Adjunct, so we're in a different region. So it's not based on region, it's not based on system, it's unlikely to be based on galaxy, but I could double check that. And we're seeing the same type of decal and the same 99. So what have we learned? We've learned that changing either this system or any one of the parts will change the stats and will also change the supercharged slots. We've learned that changing the parts can subtly change the decals, but we've basically learned that most of the stats look pretty average, so you would really probably have to do a lot of searching once you've found your perfect ship if you wanted to find exceptional stats. And if you compare, say for instance, I mean my fighter that I have, the fighter I have with me now, so this is a found S-class, and as you can see the stats are significantly higher here. So if you consider that the maximum stat is 90, 89.84 is very, very close to 90. Now the shield is below average, but the agility is again very, very high, 44.55. So that's getting up towards 45, which is the maximum agility. So we're about just under 0.5 below maximum in that particular stat, and we're less than 0.2 below the maximum in that stat. Now there's nothing faked about this particular ship. This is just what I found, but it was found at S-class, and I've been doing other research into S-class finds, and there does seem to be a pattern of exceptional stats will be usually in the thing that it specializes in, like a fighter would usually specialize in something like damage, and often a secondary stat, like for instance in this case maneuverability, will be very high. Now there's two things we haven't tested. We haven't tested color, and we haven't tested the the class, which obviously that's going to change, but I have a feeling that the stats we're seeing are based on the seed, because the seed is changing from system to system. So if we first of all, let's go for colour. And let's go with our very first ship that we can compare, and we'll just go for pure white and not any chrome at all. And these are identical stats. We're seeing exactly the same configuration of the supercharged slots, and we're seeing exactly the same stats. Basically, that seed hasn't changed, and I have a feeling that everything's coming from that seed. I haven't been highlighting it, but that seed has been changing each time we've had a different configuration, which leaves one other question, which is if the stats and the things are coming from the seed, which I imagine they are, that's why we're seeing non-exceptional stats, then are these ships identical when we upgrade from a core that is lower? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this exact ship again in the same station but at a lower class, and then upgrade it to S, and then see if that makes any difference. So first of all, we need to get hold of let's go for the A class, because it doesn't make any difference. And the way that ships normally work is a found ship will have unique stats, but as soon as you upgrade it, it will have stats based on the seed. And so if we start with an A class and then upgrade it, the stats will be based on the seed, and we'll be able to work out if the stats are always based on the seed for generated ships. So let's build our standard ship again. Oh no, we don't want to do the same reactor. With the A-class reactor, with the vector wings and the single thruster. And now we will, just for the sake of it, we'll go back to our favourite colour combination. And this is in the very first station that we started off, so it's same location. Those supercharged slots are different. That's interesting. So we can immediately see here that the supercharged slots have indeed changed completely. We've got one here, one there, and one there. There are only three because it's A class. We haven't got the fourth one yet. And the seed has changed. That is not the same seed, which means that these stats are not going to be based proportionally. It'd be interesting to see what happens when they upgrade it, but I can already tell by this that they will be different stats. So let's just do that just for the confirmation. Now, this whole thing about these stats being different and coming from the seed is one of the reasons why finding an S-class ship is worth it, because not only are S-class ships usually higher in their stats, it's they're not from the seed. The seed will provide quite normal stats, and we will see the standard stats for this ship now for the first time, presumably. No, because it's going to come from the seed. We won't see. I'm confused that seed's different. That's throwing me a little bit. So let's upgrade the starship. Upgrade class, 50,000 nanites. Looking at our starship. So there's our other supercharged slot. Not a bad little run of slots, actually. And so that's going to be another consideration, is find your perfect ship, and then you might find better slots if you change the class. So here we have the stats, and This is a very different situation to comparing a found S-class to an S-class that you've upgraded, in that here a built S-class could theoretically have lower stats because here the stats are actually not that bad. So here this shows the randomness of this entire system, because we've gone from A to S, and usually you would see less exceptional stats if compared to a found ship, but in this case we're comparing it to a built ship, and they both have not necessarily exceptional stats. So we're just going to see a different stat combination because that seed has changed. So this is not the same number as before. So this is where these stats are presumably coming from. Well, we know this is where these stats are coming from. But the original stats that when you created the ship, are clearly not based directly on that seed. So we have a different damage, different shields, and different maneuverability. And that damage isn't too bad. It's still below average, but it's better than with some of the ones we've seen. And the shields are pretty good. And the maneuverability is not great, but it's low middling. But those slots are really good. I quite like that combination. That's probably going to be quite nice for something that has quite a lot of technology. So all in all, this suggests that it is also worth checking to see if there's a better combination with a different core, which just throws yet another variable into the mix. So in conclusion, what have we learned? Well, first thing we've learned is that the stats and the layout will vary per space station. They will vary per part, and the decals will also vary by part, but not by anything else, it seems. There might be a couple of very subtle colour combinations, but you're going to get a very standard set of decals. The supercharged slots vary by station and by part, and the colour makes no difference to the stats or the supercharged slots. Surprisingly, from someone who studies how the upgrade system works, it seems that when you use a lower core, you actually get a different seed again, and therefore you get two different potential. Well, you get four potential different combinations per configuration per station. So you could go to a station and have four different sets of stats and four different fully upgraded positions of your. Oh, actually, maybe you wouldn't get four entirely different. It remains to be seen whether they would be entirely different. Certainly, if you had a C class, that first one would be different. I may do that at a later date and see. My hunch is they're going to be the same, but we'll see. But that idea that you can get a lower core, say an A class core, upgrade it and get a completely different set of stats and a different set of supercharged slots is also quite interesting in that it gives us yet another variable. The galaxy didn't seem to make a difference. The region didn't seem to make a difference. And all in all, the main gist of it, if you just want to make your favourite ship and then try and get the best stats for it, it seems that the quickest way to do that would be just to keep building that same ship in lots of different systems and making sure your technology is the same. So strip out any extra technology and just compare your stats. And if the stats are better in one particular station, then maybe record that and keep an eye and see if other things are better in that when you build them. But we haven't tried completely different stations yet to see if there are particularly good stations. I suspect it's just going to be random. But we've discovered quite a bit so far, and that takes us through quite a lot of the things that we would check for building ships and what the variables are. So that should do us for now. Travel well, and goodbye for now.